All right, everyone, give a big Niagara Falls Comic Con welcome to Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Now, you have done very many things in your career. Do you know how many acting credits you have on IMDb? Do you know the number that they have equated to you?
No, I don't. I know it's apparently
226 is what. Do you remember every one of them?
I remember every line, every one. No, well, I kind of like to work.
Yeah.
And I'm not always that particular. But if I read something and the part, looks like something I really want to get into, and the director's okay, and cast, why not? So, hence an accumulation of a lot of titles.
Yeah.
I remember that you get this compendium that has all the movies up from beginning of time up to present, and there's a little paragraph summoning up the film. And they also had a little visual stamp right next to the title that sort of told you what kind of film it was. And I had 3 or 4 with turkeys stamped next to it. I'm not congratulating myself, I just find it amusing.
And do you have a particular project for you that is really close to your heart after all these years? Is there one for you that really stands out? Or are they kind of all like, it's like your children?
I did 2 films here in Niagara with a couple who worked together, producing, writing, and directing. April. Yes.
Mullen. Oh, yeah.
April Mullen. And I remember both of them as films, very different films, that was, one of those things I read and I said, I got to do this. It's it got to me. And they were great, April Mullen and her partner, and family, so it was great working up here.
Great. And I know the fans, they love to, revisit some of their favorite movies again and again, but if you're, in your hotel room and you're flipping through the channels and you see a project that you've been in, do you stop, do you watch, or do you not like to kind of go back and look at that?
I kind of like to take a look. It's interesting in many ways, especially films that I did some years ago, to see where I was at then and where I feel I'm at the moment, and the people that I worked with and how we've changed and all those things I might have done differently if I was going to do it over again. So it's kind of, kind of fun seeing yourself up on the screen. Anyway, so yeah.
Now, a lot of people here, the biggest applause was for Back to the Future, right? Yes. I was wondering if you were to make another film, is there a time you'd want to go back to? Where do you think, if they were to do one more movie, what do you think we should have done?
Another Back to the Future?
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know. I think somehow it needs to be kind of convey a message about something that's important to everyone, universally, like climate change, some way of incorporating whatever fever there's going on at the moment into the film and keep the feeling of the 1, 2, and 3. It's a tricky deal to because you don't want to do another one and disappoint. So it's, I don't know. I'd be happy to for myself, but we'll see.
Now, with a film like that, that is, there are films like that are so big and there's so many fans, people start to talk and they hear things and rumors become facts and they end up on the internet and places. So I was wondering if you could confirm some of these things, if they're true or not, that I've discovered on the internet.
Well, I'm glad you're a good researcher.
Okay. So there is a rumor that they shot Back to the Future Part 3 before Part 2. Did that happen?
No.
No.
I don't think so. No. We did one, of course,
okay.
And there was a lapse of about 2 years, as I recall, before we went back to do 2 and 3 together. And there was some kind of stipulation that saying we're shooting 2, and the background, the location, and all of that, the makeup, whatever, is the same as a scene in exactly the same spot in 3. So you think, well, let's, tighten the budget up here a little bit. We do the 2 scenes together, one after another. But the stipulation is that you're not allowed to do that. So, hence, we did 2 and then took a short break and did 3.
Wow, okay. Apparently, you often had to hunch to hide the height difference between you and Michael J. Fox, because you were so much taller than Michael J. Fox. You had to kind of hunch in some scenes to hide the height difference. Is that, do you remember that? Is that true?
Not really. Maybe for a moment, in some instance. But when it was important that we show the height difference, they would put me on a block or
oh, really?
Michael on a block, to the director would look at it and say, okay, that works in this shot. And, but I don't remember doing this. And Michael wasn't.
The film was originally called Spaceman from Pluto. Is that true?
That I don't know.
Before Back to the Future, Spaceman from Pluto, was that on any script or breakdown that you read?
No, it doesn't.
Does it ring a bell?
Doesn't come to mind, no.
Okay, everyone update the internet after this, okay?
I mean, I could be mistaken.
Okay. Apparently, the wind was so loud during the clock tower scene that the dialogue was all re-recorded later because the turbines were so loud. Is that true?
I don't know.
Was it a loud? Do you recall shooting the clock tower scene and all the wind? Do you remember it being a very loud moment?
Well, they had the wind going. I mean, it's possible, but I don't remember recalling that they had to do those scenes all over again. It might be kind of mixed. One line may come out and it's fine, and the next line may come out and there's problems, and they have to do it over again, or whatever. Yeah, you go looping, as they say.
All right. And
lip sync yourself.
Yeah. And lastly, you initially turned the role down. Is that true?
Excuse me?
Apparently you said no, and then you were convinced later to play the part.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Yeah, I came out from New York after One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest came out, which was my first film, and an agent called me from LA and said, if you come out, we'd like to, so it took me less than a New York minute to get myself out there. And anyway, I was doing, I diverged a little bit. I was doing, so I came out, and I had never wanted to go up to Hollywood before because I knew hundreds come every year, thousands, I don't know. Unless you've got something that is solid that they want to see on a resume, kind of forget about it. So Cuckoo's Nest gave me a little leverage. And I went out there, and I was there for a while. And nothing was going on. And I had an offer to go back to New York. This was about a year or so later, more, maybe 2, I don't know. To go back to New York where I had the theater going, and it was a very good offer for a play with some really wonderful people in it. And I thought, that's where I ought to be. That's my roots, my theatrical home, so to speak. And it still is. I spent a lot of time there, not working and sort of working or whatever. So it means a lot to go back and work there. But I digress again. I hope that list isn't too long. So I decided I'm going to go back to New York and do that play. Nothing's going on here, and this I want to do. And then I was working on a film in Mexico City, I think. I got a script from my agent, Back to the Future, or Pluto.
Spaceman from Pluto.
Yeah. And I kind of just skimmed through it and literally dropped it in the waste paper basket. And a friend of mine, not a great career move, but a friend of mine was there, and she said, in New York, anything that might possibly be appropriate for me, I'd go across town to Brooklyn, or wherever I had to go to get there and show up and go for it. And so she reminded me of that. It was kind of a mantra for me. And I thought, she's got a point. So I picked it back up and went back to LA and had a meeting with Bob Zemeckis, and that was that.
Wow, that's a great story.
Next.
Now, there are a lot of fans here today who have questions, so we do have an aisle mic right here. So if you have a question for Mr. Christopher Lloyd, you could line up, but maybe to avoid blocking everybody on that side, don't worry, I got your back. Can we line up that way, maybe along the front, just so we're not blocking too many people? That'd be great. Perfect. And if you are being blocked, there are still seats available over there, so you can relocate if you'd like. Okay. Can you reach the microphone? You got a question?
How was it working with Andy Kaufman and Tony Clifton?
Well, I'll tell you, before I came on the show, Taxi was running, and Andy was being Latka. And then the producers decided they wanted Tony Clifton to be in the show, Taxi, or to be a guest, something like that. So Andy went up to the office, sitting around with the suits, and they said, we'd, like you to do Tony Clifton on the show. And Andy said, that's a separate contract. And he literally, that's the stand he took. And they had to go through the whole procedure of calling his agent, sending contracts, getting them signed, co-signed. And that's, Andy had the convictions of his particular sense of humor. And he knew how to execute it and make it work. And there's some genius in that. Imaginative, daring. I remember once we were rehearsing for the evening performance of one of the Taxi episodes. And everybody's there in the rehearsal. And it's intense, because now it's the last minute to get everything just right. And we have a 10-minute break. And some sort of discussion about levitation had come up. And of course the things, and somehow it got to the point where Andy said, I can levitate. And he proceeded to get down on the floor of the stage in a lotus position and just, kind of went into a trance-like kind of thing. And we're standing around, standing around, seeing what this guy is doing. And he just stays there, And finally, the production manager says, breaks up, we gotta go back to work. So, and he, gets up, we go back to work. And it felt like another 30 seconds, and he would have done it. Yeah, and I went to a mud wrestling event where he wrestling women, and it was entertaining. Yeah, he was a good soul. Good soul.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks a lot, man. All right, go ahead. What is your question?
Yeah, Mr. Lloyd, it's funny that the young guy came up and touched on a subject that I wanted to talk about, and that was your taxi experience with Andy Kaufman, because I watched a documentary on his lifestyle,
Right.
And the different quirks, and in my mind with my buddies, we still cannot determine, was he a genius or a lunatic or something in between? And I would like you to expand on that if you could, just to resolve that for me.
Well, I don't think he was insane. I mean, he had very clear insights and knew how to bring them to life. And there was a very rational, in his own world. and I know he did a lot of quirky things, but there was a method to his madness.
Okay. So I'm going out on a limb, say something in between.
Yeah.
And thank you
Right.
for your impact.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Big fan, and I wanted to ask, I heard a rumor that you might do an episode of Rick and Morty.
Yes, I did some. I think I did like a promotional little scene or two.
Would you want to do an actual episode of the show?
I'm sorry.
Would you want to do an episode of the show?
Do I want to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much. All right.
Hi, Christopher. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm sure the fans are thrilled that you're here, so we appreciate you coming to Niagara Falls. A question for you is, looking back at your entire career, TV, movies, even like, say, if you were in a high school play, what was the most pivotal and most enjoyable role that you had as an actor?
Role?
Yeah. Out of your entire career.
What's coming to mind now, I did a play in New York that kind of really got me started. And it was such a crazy kind of thing. It was a play by an Austrian playwright, and it was called Caspar. And Caspar, in real life, there was a Caspar, a young man who was sort of deposited on a doorstep to some professor in Munich or Berlin somewhere. And it was like he did not know anything about anything. He had no language. He didn't know what objects were, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I got a call for it. And when I read it, I thought, I don't know, I don't understand this at all. You know, it was just like, what is this? And then I kept reading it, and it was fabulous. Loved it. It was just a sort of, the character, as he's bombarded with words and things like that, to bring him intellectually aware of the world he's in. And he's eager to do it, but the truth becomes so overwhelming that it destroys him at the end. It's kind of a downer. But it's an incredible play, you know, but aside from that, it just, you know, so great. That gave me a certain, you know, recognizability that started me doing more plays.
Took you to the very next level.
Huh?
Took you to the next level.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Hello. Hi, Mr. Lloyd. I have a lot of questions to ask you, but I'll just ask you just one. I was wondering how it was like to work with Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner on Star Trek 3.
To work with William or Nimoy and Shatner. What was it like?
Oh, on
The
Return
Search
of
for
Spock?
Spock. Yeah.
It was good. It was good. When I, you know, people knew that I was going to be working with William Shatner, they were like, "Good luck," you know. Like I'm going to be, you know. So we have this battle at the end on the cliff, and you know, he puts his boot through my face, and that's that. But it was good. You know, two actors doing their thing.
And one of my favorite lines before your character dies, when you're holding William Shatner, you say, "Give me Genesis!" The planet Genesis, you tell him, "Give me Genesis!"
Yeah, I think that went over my head at the time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you,
Great.
Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you so much.